Hey, what's up everyone? James here, and we return to Disney Gargoyles, Demona. Continue to see some of her 1,000-year journey. One thing I love about this issue is that it comes across as a horror story. If you are new here, check out my Gargoyles playlist below the like button. So this story opens sometime in 1138 with the ancestor of Halcyon Renard, Blaise Renard, a stonemason and sculptor. Remember, Halcyon Renard is the CEO and founder of Cyberbiotics, a rival of Xanatos Enterprises, the ex-husband of Queen Titania's human alias Anastasia, and the father of Fox, and eventually Xanatos' father-in-law. Now, beneath a storm-darkened sky, the full moon hides behind thunderclouds as Blaise Renard dozes off at his workbench. Dreaming, he envisions a tombstone and carves the letters H-E-L. And we'll see whose name starts with those 3 letters soon. Before a crash of thunder jolts him awake. In the flickering candlelight, he gazes upon 2 massive slabs of stone. As he begins to chisel them into gargoyles, the image of his wife's anger burns in his mind, and his own blood stains the stone. Then the image of a tavern maid haunts him, and more of his blood spills upon the stone. We'll eventually learn this is Blaise Renard performing dark magic. And this isn't the first time a Renard has performed magic. In the second season episode titled Golem, Halcyon Renard's debilitating illness, which had already crippled him, was now slowly killing him. As it progressed, he made a desperate effort to avoid his doom. Renard found an ancient spell that would transfer his soul into a golem that was created in 1580 by a rabbi to defend the Jewish community in Prague from its enemies. At some later point, the golem was deactivated and stored in a hidden chamber of Altnashul, the synagogue where it had been created. Renard hired Tomasz Brod in Prague to steal the golem for him in return for a Cyberbiotics hovercraft. Renard transferred his soul into the golem, but eventually Goliath and Max Lowe, whose ancestor was the one who created the golem, persuaded him that it was wrong. And in the end, Renard understood them and had his soul returned to his body. You're going to see how that episode connects to this story. Returning to the story, months later in Vyonne, France, as Blaise passes the Vyonne cathedral, Archbishop Ambrosius stops him to discuss the 2 new gargoyles atop the cathedral. Blaise responds that they're not new, that his 2 new gargoyles were installed weeks ago. Ambrosius tells him he doesn't mean those, but 2 new monstrous ones that are front and center on the roof, which are really Angelika and Demona in their stone sleep. Blaise Renard insists that they aren't his creations, but Ambrosius is skeptical because they bear his unmistakable craftsmanship, and he cannot believe it's the new sculptor's creations that the town council recently replaced him with, named Jerome Mazel, because he basically sucks. And he produces fast and cheap creations, which is one of the reasons why they replaced Blaise with him. There is another reason why he was replaced that has to do with some corruption within the town council that we'll learn in a bit. Ambrosius warns Renard that the council will not pay for his quote ambitious new works. Frustrated at the conversation, Blaise tells him he needs to get home to his wife and son. He soon meets up with his son, Martin Pichère Renard. Martin shows him a miniature sculpture he made, mentioning it's like the new one he made atop the cathedral, which looks like Demona. When he tells Blaise he knows it's not as good as his, Blaise tries to teach his son not to compare his work to others, urging him to remain true to his art. That's when his wife Heloise interrupts, berating him, insisting that a man of true integrity would provide for his family, working faster and cheaper rather than creating unpaid statues. Just like Ambrosius, she also doesn't believe him when he tells her the new statues aren't his. So the name Blaise was carving into the stone in his dream was his wife. Blaise leaves for the tavern. Later, the tavern maid whom Blaise obviously has a thing for, whom he only refers to as Mademoiselle Vyonne, trying to hide his attraction for her and be respectful, she pours him a drink and insists he use her first name, Nicolette. Soon, Jerome Mazel and Guillaume Masper, who runs the town council, enter. Jerome accuses Blaise of trying to outshine him with the new gargoyles, and secretly plotting to get his job back. Guillaume chimes in saying his ploy failed and the town council won't be changing course as long as he runs things. Blaise accuses Jerome of slipping kickbacks from his fees to Guillaume, and that's how he ultimately got the town sculptor job. Guillaume says that that's an outrageous accusation, and Jerome tells Renard that his work is too slow, too grotesque, and too frightening, and that's why he was replaced. When Renard says gargoyles are supposed to be frightening, Jerome replies, "But your work goes too far. Any man who can create something so monstrous must be a monster as well." Blaise's dream at the beginning of the story and that statement are all going to speak to the darkness that lies within him. From across the room, Nicolette watches with pity, not liking how Blaise is being treated, asking her father to defuse the situation. From there, we go to the previous night for a moment, high atop the cathedral. Angelika questions Demona on why they're in a country she says hates gargoyles, while their treasure is hidden in the forest and they sleep at the very center of the human city. Demona doesn't respond to her questioning because she's focused on humanity's hypocrisy, how they hunted down true gargoyles in the past, and yet these days believe stone effigies of gargoyles will protect them. Though she views it as a perversion, she recognizes it provides an advantage of allowing them to hide in plain sight during the day. Transitioning back to the present day, this is where it begins to get nuts. Blaise climbs to the cathedral rooftop. Demona and Angelika awaken from their stone sleep. Demona becomes furious at his presence, but Angelika calms her down, reminding her that he could have harmed them during their sleep. Blaise reveals that he has an admiration for their kind and remembers as a boy when their kind filled the night skies. Demona scorns his words, pointing out how that was the time before humans hunted down the gargoyles. Blaise apologizes for that and insists his statues, Grimalkin and Satyr, were made to honor their memory. Angelika admires his craftsmanship, while even Demona admits his work captures a certain savage grace. Suddenly though, Grimalkin's eyes blaze with light. The statue awakens, roaring into the night sky, and then takes flight. Demona confronts Blaise because she recognizes the spell as one that animates stone and quickly figures out Blaise is behind it. Elsewhere, Jerome and Guillaume stagger drunkenly through the streets. Grimalkin descends upon them and rips them apart. Blaise tries to deny it, but when Demona's sword touches his throat, he confesses to being a practitioner in the dark arts. He frantically proposes a partnership where they will keep each other's secrets, for if the people discover either of them, they'll be killed. Blaise leaves, and while the news is spreading about the mutilated bodies of Guillaume and Jerome, Angelika mentions to Demona that she's surprised she agreed to Blaise Renard's partnership. Out of nowhere, Blaise's statue Satyr awakens laughing. Angelika follows him, and Demona tries to tell her to wait and calls her a child for being rash. Angelika kind of puts Demona in her place. She says, "I am no longer a child, Demona. Besides, you have taught me to make my own decisions ever since I was a rookling." Blaise returns to the tavern where people are still freaking out over the bodies. He sees Nicolette shaken from it all in the arms of another man here named Raoul, which secretly angers him. At that moment, Satyr crashes into the tavern. Nicolette's father and Raoul try their best to try and stop the stone gargoyle, but it's useless. It takes Nicolette and flies into the sky. Angelika tries to stop Satyr, but he just backslaps her away. Meanwhile, at Blaise's home, Heloise tucks Martin into bed as he insists on waiting for his father. Who's there in the shadows is Grimalkin. He takes Heloise. At that moment, Blaise makes it back to his home as he hears Heloise scream. He arms himself with a sledgehammer and runs outside where he confronts Satyr and Grimalkin, who await with Nicolette unconscious and his wife, Heloise, dead. He yells at them saying, "I didn't want this." They both reply, "You did." So Blaise's stone gargoyles took his dreams that we saw at the beginning of the story as his deep desires that he wanted them to bring to fruition. He yells no as he attempts to smash them, but they both take him into the sky. As Angelika and Demona follow, the stone gargoyles take Blaise to the top of Vyonne Cathedral. Blaise tries again to smash them with his sledgehammer. He hits Grimelkin's arm and it's smashed off, but the arm wraps its talons around his throat, choking Blaise. He loses his footing and Blaise Renard falls to his death. Angelika and Demona arrive on top of the cathedral. Angelika says, "This is what we must look like to humans." Demona replies, "Humans are too corrupt to know any difference between us and creatures such as these." Demona grabs Blaise's sledgehammer, and Angelika asks her, "You would do to them what was done to your clan and mine?" Demona answers, "As always, I do what I must." Demona smashes the stone gargoyles to pieces and says, "Now let us leave this cursed town." By morning, Vyonne wakes to all the horror. Nicolette comforts the now orphaned Martin Renard. At the same time, Archbishop Ambrosius discovers Renard's dead body with Grimelkin's talons still buried in his neck. Deep in the forest, Demona and Angelika sleep apart and alone. That's the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. The next video will be the final one covering the Demona miniseries. In the meantime, check out one of these videos covering more of Disney Gargoyles. Other than that, have an awesome day, and always remember every day to go beyond.